We're so glad to have you all here tonight for our safety and sanitization meeting. We're excited to have our students back on campus, but we know that there's a lot of concerns that people have as we're coming back to school, and we want to address those all today. Before we get started, we're going to introduce ourselves, and my name is Ben Faubert. I'm the principal here at Mountain House High School.
Hello, my name is Joni Hellstrom. I'm the associate principal at the high school.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Mr. Panu, Camel Panu. I'm one of the VPs here at the high school.
Hello, I am the other vice principal at the high school. I'm Athena Duran.
All right, Mrs. Duran and Mrs. Hellstrom will be back on later to read questions, so they're going to go away in the background for a minute. While Mr. Panu and I got started with the presentation. So, again, thank you for being here tonight, and we're going to get going with our presentation. So first of all, here's the agenda for tonight. We're going to try and get through these slides in about 10-15 minutes, and then leave most of the time at the end for questions and answers. So those of you who are on right now, there will be a question and answer time. We are not using the live chat on YouTube Live tonight. What we will have is a link at the end of this meeting where you'll be able to submit your questions, and Mrs. Hellstrom and Mrs. Duran will be reading out those questions, and we will answer them live, and we'll stay on as long as we need to answer all the questions that you have. So we're going to talk about the return to school plans. We're going to talk about safety on campus. We're going to talk about cleaning and sanitizing. We're going to talk about any kind of special logistics that are going on our campus while we're coming back. We're going to talk about COVID exposure and positive cases and what happens when and if positive cases are found on campus. And then again, question and answers at the end of the meeting. So SB 98 passed this year and basically said schools are required to open when possible. And any plan that we have is actually subject to change. So the information we present to you at today actually is subject to change between now and Monday when kids start coming back to campus. So be aware that you need to check our website and be ready for changes in the moment. So the decisions that we make and the changes that we make are based on direct guidance from the San Joaquin County Department of Public Health. And our district meets weekly with them and actually has a direct line to them when there are questions. And the board got approval of the CDPH recommendations, and that is what we're moving forward with. The new plan return in person is April 19th in the hybrid program, and we will be talking specifically what that looks like, what the bell schedule looks like, which kids should be coming, and when they should be coming later. Now that we are in the red tier, Mountain House High School students can return to in-person instruction. All decisions about returning to in-person instruction, again, have included guidance from the Department of Public Health at the county, guidance from the County Office of Education, and the Lambersville Unified School Board approval of those recommendations. So we are transitioning to a hybrid learning, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Panu.
All right. So with our transition on Monday, April 19th, we will be welcoming kids back to campus. For those students that are fully online, they will work and stay at home. The students that are transitioning back, we have split them into two cohorts. But again, we are coming back on Monday, April 19th. Even if our county moves back to the purple tier, based on the guidance and also the recommendations by CDPH and also the approval by the school board, we would continue our plan of opening. Next slide, please. So here is our schedule, and you may have noticed already, Mustang families and students, we're sending out daily blurbs and information, but we have our Group A and our Group B. Group A's are coming to school on Mondays and Thursdays. Group B is Tuesday and Friday. We will continue our success intervention, which is mandatory instructional time. However, that's going to be on Wednesdays still, and success will still be run primarily digitally. In turn, we're still going to be using Flex Time Manager. You students have already been using it for the school year so far, so we're going to continue that system. But again, we'll be coming back Monday, and we'll be split with an A cohort and a B cohort. We are limiting the number of students on campus as part of our plan is that students do have the opportunity to have off-campus privileges. This is something we were doing pre-COVID as well. Students that have any online class with their parent permission, and we have links to the form as well, and we've also sent it out. Once that form is submitted, it lets us know that this student can leave campus if they have an online class. If they have a flex, they may also leave campus, and then 11th and 12th graders may also leave campus during lunch. This helps in making sure that our numbers are evenly split, and also just making sure that we're able to get people off campus. All right, so we are splitting the campus in half. We have our A cohort and B cohorts. Parents had an opportunity earlier in the school year to determine if their students were hybrid or part of the online pathway. We are finalized in terms of which students are part of the A cohort and which students are part of the B cohort. Primarily your cohort A, if you have an ID number, again, you're attending Monday and Thursday. And then your cohort B would be a Tuesday, Friday.
Just a clarification on that. That's a general rule. Some of you have asked for a variance from that rule, and we have granted those. So it should actually show up in your Aries portal. If you're ever wondering where you are or which cohort you're in, whether it's the Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday, you can go into your Aries portal, click on student information, and I believe it's demographics, or then it'll show at the bottom of the screen whether you're Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Friday.
Mm-hmm. As mentioned, we do have this off-campus privilege form. Again, parents, please make sure that your student fills it out. The deadline to submit this form is tomorrow at 5 p.m. We've already received a little over 200 copies of the form. Once you do print and scan a copy, parents, make sure to sign it, and then you're going to email it to MHHS attendance@lambersvilleusd.net. This, again, allows your student to leave campus when they do not have a face-to-face class or they have a flex. ID cards. ID cards will be distributed on the first day the student is on campus, and they'll be visiting their advisory. We want to make sure that students have an opportunity to visit their advisory teacher in the flesh. You know, the entire year they've been visiting them digitally, and then ID cards will be distributed at that time. Any students that are fully online, we will be sending a separate communication about when you can come pick up your ID card. General measures. Right now we're gonna review a couple of general measures that we have in terms of what happens if a student is feeling ill at school, and also going over our sanitization and also special logistics. But the idea is that if a student is feeling sick, do not send them to school. It is okay. If your child wakes up and says, "Mom, Dad, I'm not feeling well," do not send them to school. If they're here on campus and they do fall ill, we send them to the nurse. We isolate them while we check on their symptoms. We do send them home. And then the area where that student was will also be cleaned and sanitized. Again, there's no attendance consequences for being sick, but if your student wakes up is not feeling well, do not send them to campus. So, as you all know, as we've been going through this pandemic, examples of COVID-19 symptoms are very similar to symptoms of allergies or flu or cold. Again, if your student is displaying any one of these symptoms, you can definitely check our daily screener. And if they're not feeling well, do not send them to school. Here's our COVID home screener. This is something that we've been using for the last couple of months. It has several questions. Again, you want to pull the screener out. You want to make sure that your student is feeling well and able to attend school. Do not send them if they have any symptoms. If you need to report an absence, you can call the attendance office. We also have our online form that you can find on the website as well to report a student being absent for the day. Healthy hygiene practices. This is something that we will continue to emphasize as students are coming back to campus. You will see multiple signs across campus that are, stationed near entrances and exits, near lunchrooms. Each classroom has hand sanitizer. We also have disinfectant wipes for students to use, but we want to make sure that students are practicing safe hygiene practices, washing their hands appropriately, and there's frequent signage all over the building reminding students of these policies. Face covering. Students and staff must wear face masks. If a student arrives without a mask at any one of our 4 entry points, they will be provided with one. If a student is saying that I do not want to wear one, they will not be permitted to enter campus. This is something that's non-negotiable. And we have face masks for students in case they do forget. And also this is the same for adults, including all staff members as well. Signage, as I mentioned earlier, the hallways are littered and the entire campus has multiple signs about making sure you space yourselves apart, making sure that you're using the restrooms appropriately, sanitizing your hands. We definitely want to make sure that we're not congregating. Hallways have signage indicating that students need to space themselves up. This is also indicated by us also having the split cohort model, but we definitely want to make sure that we continue to remind students of all our safety practices. During the presentation, folks, you'll notice that certain words are highlighted in yellow. These are informational videos. You may have seen them as we send them out daily as reminders to our Mountain House families. But later, when you have an opportunity, you can go back and watch these videos as well that explain a lot of our signage and policies and procedures. As I mentioned, we're going to be primarily using 4 entry and exit points on campus. These are spaced apart to make sure that students are not congregating. It allows for quick entry and exit. Gates will be opened and closed at the start of each period, and within 10 minutes, they will then be closed. Students must wear their IDs once they receive them. Again, the first Monday and Tuesday, students will be getting their IDs from their advisory teacher. Again, you can watch the informational video about where our 4 entries and exits are and how students can enter campus quickly. Here's an overview and a map. Parents, as you know, the front of the school is going to be the busiest, but that is primarily where you're going to be if you need to drop off your kid via a vehicle. Students are also, many of our students do walk to campus as well. Again, we have these entry and exit points spaced appropriately across campus, therefore we can mitigate congregating. Our main drop-off is the front of the school. Parents, you will notice on Monday or Tuesday or whenever you are dropping off your student, please pull in. There's going to be cones that are in the parking lot. This will show you what the lanes are for dropping your student off. Please make sure you pull up all the way up to the curb. We have a massive drop-off area at the front of the school. We definitely want to make sure we're utilizing that space. Parents, again, you will drop off your student. Do not get out of your car. Your students will then proceed to one of those entry and exit points. You have seen some information that went out yesterday about how to navigate campus. Here is an overview of campus. We have our gym, NPR, our A building, B building, C, E, and learning commons. To help students and also as they navigate campus, if a student looks at their classes that are located on areas, the first letter indicates which building they need to be at. So for example, if it's C120, that would be the C building. The number then designates the first number that's after the letter will designate what floor. So our C building and A building are double story. So if it's, for example, C220, that would mean in the C building, the 2 would indicate it's on the 2nd floor, and then that would be room 220. Each of our hallways have signs on the walls indicating where the rooms are located. Each classroom has a room number listed on the outside. All our staff members, when they are opening their classes, will be helping transition students into the rooms and buildings. So parents, if you're a little nervous that your student might not know where to go, staff members will be standing outside of their classroom welcoming students in. We also have our campus supervisors that will be assisting with students. And also we have our custodial team too that will be helping students get to the correct classes. Our learning commons is going to be an area that students, if they are remaining on campus because they do not have the off-campus privilege form, they will be allowed to go inside the learning commons. We will be limiting the number of students that are allowed into the learning commons. Our capacity is 225. We'll be limiting the number of students that are in there to make sure that we can appropriately space them out. The learning commons will have a separate entry and exit way. All of our buildings have designated entry and exit points. Signage in hallways help indicate and usher students to those entry and exit points. You can, again, refer to this video after this session, after we're done with our presentation today, if you want to see a live view of what those entry and exit points are for the learning commons. Cleaning and sanitizing. So the school is being cleaned daily by our custodians. Our bathrooms are also cleaned hourly by our custodians. We primarily use a spray solution that dissolves once applied. It takes a couple of minutes to do so. But our custodians are going through the building, they're sanitizing daily and also making sure that there are any high touch points, so door handles or hallway railings or anything that gets frequently touched is also being wiped down and also sprayed with our spray solution. Teachers also have this spray solution in their class. Teachers are the only ones allowed to use it. But we also have a procedure that any student that enters a space, to ensure that that space is clean, that they wipe down their own area. We sent our informational video which shows that students take the wipes from the bucket, they wipe down their specific workstation, and then they throw the wipe into the garbage. But we are sanitizing daily, and then we also have a deep clean on Wednesdays as well. Our high school meets the Title 24 of the California Building Standards Codes. We are rated MERV in terms of our air filters are 8 or higher. We have made sure that all our air filtration systems are continuously working. They're updated monthly, in addition to they're regularly being cycled at least 6 times per hour. We have fresh air dampers. We allow for 20% of fresh air into the space every time it cycles. And again, this is something that our maintenance department continues to update and make sure that it's working appropriately. Special logistics. Lunch. So students that will be on campus will have an opportunity to get lunch. As I mentioned earlier, we do have our informational video. If you click where it says multi-use room, students will line up. They're spaced apart. We'll have 2 designated lunch pickup areas. It's a grab and go lunch. There's going to be no cash that's exchanged. We are using the website, the mymealorder.com. This is the same website we've been using all year when it comes to picking up lunches. There's also another informational video that was sent out earlier, but students do have the option of getting lunch. The first lunch is free and provided by the district. The second lunch will be $3.25. Students, if they forget to order their lunch the day before on the mymealorder.com website, they can always just pick it up and then scan their ID card. Again, this shows that ID cards, students need to make sure that they have them on at all times. Eating on campus. Students are not allowed to eat in classrooms. Students can eat lunch at the lunch tables that are in the quad area. We've moved our lunch tables to allow for greater distancing. We also have a variety of lunch tables. We have some that seat 3. We have some that seat 4. They are spaced apart. When students are eating, they're allowed to remove their face masks and their coverings. However, once they're done with their meals, they need to place those masks back on. We will have a limited number of seats inside the MPR. As our county transitions in the tier model, the number of seats will increase depending on where we are in terms of that tier. But however, primarily students will be eating in the quad area. We also have multiple other benches that are located in the quad and other sitting areas as well to allow for students to eat freely. Classrooms with shared materials. So any class that there are shared materials, for example, our computer labs, our art classes, culinary, our science classes, especially when it comes to labs, and also our music classes, students will be provided with nitrile gloves. These gloves can be disposed at the end of each period. Again, we will follow our sanitation policies and procedures where items that are shared will be wiped down to make sure that they're ready to use and sanitized prior to being handed over to another student. But anything that has shared materials, we are supplying nitrile gloves for students to use. Students can also bring their own gloves if they've needed. And teachers are also reaching out specifically to their individual students about additional supplies that they may need. But we are providing gloves to mitigate the risk of sharing items and also cleaning as we use them as well. Locker rooms. We will primarily not be using locker rooms for our PE department when we return for the hybrid learning. Again, as Mr. Faubert mentioned, we do have changes that consistently come up and also updates. But when we start on Monday, we will not be using locker rooms. Students in turn will need to wear comfortable clothing. They will not be dressing out, but they should wear clothing that allows them to participate. Music. For our music classes, students have a designated space that's outside of the MPR. Students will wipe down their chairs and music stands. Again, we want to make sure that we are following our sanitation policies and procedures. Students will also be given a break. Certain music classes will be outside and making sure that they're able to practice appropriately. For other music classes, for example, like guitar, they'll be inside. Students will still be required to wear their masks. Again, shared items, students will be given gloves, and no instruments will be stored in the music classroom throughout the school day. Individual teachers will also reiterate their safety procedures as students are welcome back to campus as well. Now that we are having students come back to campus, parents, if your child takes medication, we need to make sure that we have the appropriate forms. Again, at the end of this presentation, you will have access to this PowerPoint. These links are live. Please make sure that you do fill out these medication at school form. This is then going to be given over to our school nurse. And then for any students that are allowed to carry their own individual medication, you need to make sure that you follow the policies and procedures that have been established. Again, you can click on these hyperlinks after the presentation, and then make sure your student does have their medication ready on hand, and we will be working alongside our nurse on that. Exposure, positive cases. So again, as I mentioned earlier, if a student has symptoms or reports that they are sick, they are isolated, they are sent to our school nurse. They will be sent home, and we do all follow a policy and procedure that we have in place that offers us guidance on the next steps. Again, the student and the teacher will be removed from the classroom, and we'll make sure that we clean and sanitize that area if a student or a staff member is starting to feel ill. In returning to school, based on the symptoms and what specifically happens next on our checklist, a student will have to be fever-free for 24 hours, and there are other criteria that allows them to return back to school if they were sent home. If they're positive for COVID-19, then we will follow the guidance that CDPH alongside our COVID-19 response plan, and we will follow that guidance, and they will be able to return after 10 days of quarantining. But if a student does get sent home, again, they need to be fever-free for 24 hours and also meet one of the other criteria. All of this information, if your student is sent home, we will review with you. We will also give you a copy of the paperwork, so it's easy to follow. And again, you can always call the school if you did have any additional questions if your student is sent home. Now, the definition of close contact, one of the things that as we have gone through the pandemic is contact is defined by anybody who's within 6 feet of a person who's COVID positive for at least 15 minutes within 24 hours. This is our definition of close contact. As we've done contact tracing over the course of the year, and as we've gone through the pandemic, we need to make sure that we follow the protocols that are set forth by CDPH. If somebody is asymptomatic, we then track 2 days prior to that. This individual testing positive, and then go back for those 2 days to help in identifying who has had contact with this person. But contact is defined by 6 feet of an infected person for at least 15 minutes within a 24-hour span. This definition is important because this helps in terms of determining when people should go quarantine and also in our gathering our information. Again, if a student has symptoms or is feeling sick, the student, for them to return, has to meet specific guidelines. They have to be fever-free for 24 hours, and they need to have one of the following conditions met. If a student tests positive, not only are they quarantining for 10 days, they would need to be fever-free for 36 hours without medication and an improvement in symptoms. Again, our biggest push, Mountain House Mustangs and family, is that if you are feeling unwell, do not come to school. We do have our guidelines and notification. This is part of our COVID-19 plan. If somebody does have symptoms, again, we have specific actions. If somebody does come into close contact, there is quarantine recommendations. We will review these recommendations with you and your student. There is also a notification letter that gets sent to any incident that happens on campus when somebody does have close contact with someone known to be positive for COVID-19. If there's a confirmed infection, again, we work alongside our public health department. We will be in contact with our families and our students, and then there's going to be a set of quarantine. There's additional paperwork which outlines what you need to specifically do, and then we will also notify those individuals that have come in contact with this person who's COVID-19. We also have additional communication that goes out if there is an incident on a campus and there is no exposure. Again, the definition of being in contact means you were within 6 feet of that person for 15 minutes for 24 hours. If there are incidents of COVID-19 that do occur on campus, there will be notification just letting you know there was an incident. We want to continue to be transparent, but also letting you know that there was non-exposure, meaning you were not exposed. However, we are saying there was an incident of somebody having COVID-19. Now, the individual who ends up having the symptoms, if they are negative after the test, they may return. Again, it's 3 days. They also need to have no fever without the use of medication. And there's specific criteria for that person to come back. If somebody has symptoms of COVID-19 and was not tested, again, there are specific guidelines on when that person can return. We are following those CDPH guidelines. We work hand in hand with them and alongside the district, and we will review what those specific guidelines are for you and your specific student if there is an incident on a campus. So if somebody does test positive, and this is something I was mentioning earlier, based on the definition of contact, you would have to also then go back 2 days and you would have to contact trace. If we are contact tracing, we would ask who the student has been around. We would see which parts of campus they've been. And then we would also need to follow up with the family to see who else is in the household. This information does get shared with CDPH. It is confidential. We will maintain confidentiality as required by state and federal laws, but we need to go back and make sure that we are seeing exactly where that student has been and who they've come into contact with. Now, say for example, there's an incident where a teacher does test positive. All the classes that teacher has had within a specific time period will be quarantined. Again, you will receive notification saying that your student has come into contact with somebody who's COVID positive, and then there's going to be quarantining guidelines. There's no attendance consequences for the students. If a student is in a classroom where the teacher or another person was positive for COVID, they will transition back to distance learning. The teacher will be also sent home as well. If a student tests positive, again, we need to go back and trace to see exactly which classes that student went to. All those classes will be quarantined. You will receive notification. Again, there's no attendance consequences for the students. Students will then transition back to distance learning, and then the teacher will teach from home.
I would say that the only exception to that is that a majority of our teachers have actually been vaccinated. And if a teacher is vaccinated and they become exposed to a student in their classroom, that teacher will not have to teach from home, which means none of the other classes would be impacted.
Now, before we continue with the presentation, as Mr. Faubert had shared, we are sharing a lot of information. We want to have an opportunity to answer all of your questions, especially our community. Thank you for your patience. As you know, it's been a year journey. So please take a look at this form. It's a tiny URL. You can go into it. Please list your question. We're going to be spending some time at the end of this presentation, making sure that we go over questions and answers for our community members. But before we continue, here's our tiny URL. You can ask your question here, and we'll make sure that we address it at the end of our PowerPoint presentation. Now, there is a possibility, again, since we are working with CDPH and our plan has been approved, there is a possibility that the school could close. There is a rule called the 5% rule, in which 5% of the school population tests positive. This is a potential closure if there's 3 positive cases within 14 days. Now, again, these plans are subject to change. And the recommendation is with CDPH. Again, because we are meeting with them regularly and we are in consistent contact, if there are several incidents of people being positive for COVID-19 on campus, we will work alongside them and they will give us the ultimate guidance on whether or not we would have to go into a closure. This is something that we have planned for and prepared. This is a worst case scenario, but just wanted to let you know that we continue to work alongside them, and they are the ones that will give us the guidance on what specifically would happen next. As part of the Lambertville Unified School District, again, there is a possibility. Again, these are worst case scenarios in which the school district would have to close. You know, an example of it would be that one K-8 school in the high school has an outbreak in which there's multiple cases that are unrelated to one another. Another option would be that 3 K-8 schools close because they're having an outbreak. Again, these are recommendations by CDPH. These are seen as more worst case scenarios, and then we would liaison with them. We've had a soft opening. We've been bringing in intervention students since December, and you know, many of you who are part of watching the presentation, your student may have been coming to campus. Again, we take our safety and sanitation as the utmost importance. We're continuously documenting who comes to campus, the use of masks, and making sure that we are being as safe as possible. We haven't had to go down this route, but this is something that we do prepare for as well and have planned for. Again, folks, we do want to make sure that we answer all your questions. Here is a link to our tiny URL. Please put your question there, and then the admin team will make sure that we address it. We have shared a lot of information with y'all. Again, all of this information is also available on our website. As we continue to receive guidance, we definitely will continue to update our website. As you've seen, we are sending those daily blurbs of information as well to make sure that students and families are up to date with the most updated guidance.
All right. That is the end of our presentation. As Mr. Panu said, this is our link. Go ahead and type that in if you have any questions. In a minute, we're going to bring Mrs. Hellstrom and Mrs. Duran back on. Before I bring them back on, I want to draw your attention at the bottom of this slide that states, and we've put it across the screen a few times during the presentation, that all of this slide deck, including links to all of these videos and documents, are up there on this slide deck on tinyurl.com/MHHS-COVID-guidance. You can go ahead and visit that and make sure that you get all the information that you need. So let's go over some of the Q&A. Let's bring on Mrs. Hellstrom and Mrs. Duran. Welcome back. And we can go over some questions.
Mr. Faubert, at this point, we don't have any questions that have been submitted.
Okay, well, just wait a minute or two. I know that I'm looking at YouTube Live right now. We have about 145 people watching tonight. Thank you so much. We'll keep checking those Q&As. I know that it's open to the public, so we'll just wait a few minutes. I guess one of the things that I can say while we're waiting is we're actually really very excited to be welcoming our students back to campus. We know that it can be a little bit anxiety-ridden to send your children back to school, but we believe that we have some great things put into place to make sure that students are safe, that our campus is a sanitized place where kids can be safe while they're on campus. Many of you know that I'm not just the principal of Mountain House High School, but I'm also a parent. I have 2 of my own students that go to the high school and several others that go to the K-8 schools. And so, safety and sanitization at this time is very important to me. And we're really looking forward to making sure that things are safe for your students when they come back, and that they get at least somewhat of an experience of what it's like to be at school this year. I do also want to mention that we, on the website at that tinyurl.com/MHHS-COVID-guidance, we do have a frequently asked questions page from the last meeting that we had, and you can go ahead and take a look at those if you have any questions there. Looks like there's still no questions on our site.
A popular question that was been asked by many families is there a possibility to switch between the cohorts? As mentioned earlier in the presentation, because we are so close to the return of school, our cohort lists are essentially locked now. It also includes, we've had some questions about switching between the hybrid student model and also fully online. That is also locked as well. We had multiple opportunities earlier in the school year, but as Mr. Faubert said, we are excited to welcome kids back on Monday. It's been a long journey, and safety and sanitation is something that we have consistently worked on, and also we've had a soft rolling out of this to make sure that our campus is ready to go for our students. Another Another frequently asked question that's come up this week is just the off-campus privileges form. We definitely want to make sure you take the form, you print it out, and then scan a copy and then send it to our attendance office. Once the form is received, it gets uploaded into our system, and then our campus supervisor at each of our gates, our 4 gates, our campus supervisors will be there to make sure that only the students who have filled out the form and have it approved are allowed to leave campus. We have a scan out system. It will indicate whether or not that person, as they're scanning out, is allowed to leave as well. Parents, if your student does have online classes or has flex, please make sure that you do fill out the form, and that allows them to come to campus when they have their face-to-face, but they can also leave once they are done for the day as well, and they continue with their asynchronous work. An additional question that's been asked is in terms of where students are entering each of the spaces that we have on campus, or specifically classes. They do take their own sanitation wipe, they wipe down their specific area, and then they throw it away. Again, this is to ensure that a student walks in, and if they're about to sit down at a desk or a table, they know that it has been cleaned appropriately, and they're the ones that are doing it. Teachers, again, also have the sanitation spray that they can utilize on equipment and also on materials if they are needing to share that among students. That spray, again, it self-dissolves after a couple of minutes as well, but students will be sanitizing their own workspace areas as they enter their classroom.
It looks like we're having a problem with our form, so we're trying to fix that really quick so that we can get something out. So if you're still with us, stay on, and we will put up a new link so that we can get your questions, because I'm sure there's got to be questions tonight. So just one moment.
Okay, I am ready with the first question. The first question is, if the child tests positive but are asymptomatic and are able to attend class, will their class/teacher be changed to enable remote learning?
If the child tests positive, they have to follow quarantine orders, and then we would implement contact tracing and then go back, and then based on whoever came into contact with that student, they would also transition to distance learning. If your child is positive for COVID-19, please do not send them to campus.
Are lunches to be ordered online? Is Easy School Pay still being used? If someone has a balance there, is it transferred over to My Meal Order?
So the My Meal Order and the Easy Pay system are essentially the same thing. We are still utilizing that. When you sign up for your account for the mymealorder.com, you will implement your information on how to pay. Again, the first lunch is free. It's provided by the district, so thank you, district, on that. But if you have any additional questions, you can reach out to Miss Bernie Hill, who's our food director as well, and she sends several communications out. What they do ask is that meal orders are placed the night before by 9 p.m. However, if a student does forget, it's perfectly okay. They can still scan their ID card and then just pick up a bag of lunch to go.
Okay. Can students get their own laptops, or are they required to use only Chromebooks?
As of right now, we're requiring students to use Chromebooks at the beginning of the school year. We, like many schools across the United States, there was a shortfall in the number of Chromebooks. We do have a 1-to-1 Chromebook ratio, and we have asked that students use our Chromebooks Therefore, they're able to use the programs that we have embedded on the Chromebooks, and also our safety programs such as Go Guardian.
Okay. Will OC students test on campus or at home? Are they required to test with their OC teacher or with the testing center?
So one of the transitions that we're going to be doing is OP students that are fully online will be using the testing center primarily. OC students, we are asking them to come test with their teachers. Teachers will be scheduling when an OC student will come test. You're not expected to come test every single time you have your cohort on campus, but based on where we are in the school year, remember all OC classes need to be completed by May 21st. In turn, students will only have 1 or 2 tests left that they need to complete if they're on track. So students that are OC students, please make sure to check in with your OC teacher.
I have heard discussion of returning 5 days sooner than later. Is there a transition plan from 2 to 5 days, like 3 or 4 days? What's the time frame?
I'll go ahead and answer that one. The plan is that on May 10th, we will return to all students on campus. We're still working on what the bell schedule will look like for that, but it will be all students on campus and no longer the hybrid schedule. And so it still remains to be seen what that schedule will look like, but it will definitely likely be more than just seeing each teacher once a week. And so you should look forward to that communication coming in the next week or so.
Okay. What will success look like for students that are hybrid and on campus? Why aren't we having success before lunch like previous years? Would the removal of masks be allowed in classrooms for hydration?
You're not going to be eating or drinking while you're inside the building. So in turn, you're not removing your mask. Again, if you're outside in an open space and you are drinking a beverage or having your lunch, you can then remove your mask. Success is at the end of the day in order to accommodate those students that are on campus and also not on campus. Primarily success will be digital. If a teacher does require you to come to their success physically, face-to-face, and you're on campus, for example, say it's Monday, it's the end of 4th period and success starts, you'll be physically unable to make your way home and then to get on. But primarily success is going to be digital, and that also includes on Wednesdays as well, to allow for the greatest amount of students to be as part of those sessions.
Okay, if my son had an Easy Pay school lunch account, will that balance transfer to the new meal system, or do we need to open up another account?
It should transfer over. However, that's a question I will again defer to Ms. Bernie Hill. That's the food director. Once you do upload your new account, you should see if there is a balance that has been forwarded over. If you have any questions, I would reach out to her.
Okay. If a student is fully vaccinated and exposed to another student who is positive for COVID, do they need to quarantine for 14 days?
Based on our current guidance, we would follow the policy and the procedures that we do have. Once it gets updated, as Mr. Fobray mentioned, it's different right now for staff that are fully vaccinated. We don't have any guidance in terms of students that are fully vaccinated. When those changes occur, we will definitely communicate that out.
I am a freshman. I am in cohort B. I have only one face-to-face class, and that is on Tuesdays. So do I have to come to school 1 day a week?
You would come to your face-to-face class. You definitely want to make sure that you have that off-campus privilege form if the rest of your classes are OC classes.
The quick answer is absolutely yes. If you have a face-to-face class, you are required to come, even if it's one.
Okay. Can the kids bring their own lunch?
Right now, we're asking students to either use lunch from the cafeteria or go have off-campus lunch. For example, our juniors and seniors have that opportunity to go have off-campus lunch. We don't want to bring food into the building as part of our safety policy.
Okay. Is advisory a must for all students? I believe we need to for the first day to collect our ID. How about the other days?
Advisory attendance is absolutely necessary. Again, we will be, as we've been doing the entire school year, we utilize that for attendance policy. For the first day, yes, you want to go pick up your ID card, and then you can log into advisory digitally if needed as well, if you're on campus or if you're not.
Okay. Will Edgenuity testing still occur virtually? How will leaving campus for lunch or OC class work? Do we have to inform someone before we leave?
Repeat that part about the Edgenuity portion.
Read those questions one at a time. That's 3 different questions.
Okay, will Edgenuity testing still occur virtually?
If you are a fully OP student, you will be utilizing the testing center. If you're OC, you will be taking your test with your OC teacher.
Okay, how will leaving campus for lunch or OC class work? Do we have to inform someone before we leave?
So as mentioned, there's going to be a designated exit way. Campus supervisor will be positioned there. You will scan out your ID card. Our system will flag if you have the privilege to go, and then you can just leave campus. We have signage that will be put up indicating which gate we'll primarily be using to exit campus.
If a person doesn't have a first period class but has a class later on in the day, would they need to be there exactly at 8:30 a.m. or would they just need to show up later on that day for the class period they need to attend?
Yeah, just show up later in the class in the day when you're supposed to attend. You don't need to come to campus to sit.
Okay. If you have flex period, can you go to the Learning Commons?
Yes. Learning Commons. There's other areas on the quad. Please note that the Learning Commons will have a max capacity, and you might be turned away depending on how many people are in there at that time. But remember, we're on a very decreased number of students, so it's likely there will be room in there.
For success, can we see the teachers in person or Zoom or Google Meet on campus?
If you're on campus already and success is directly starting, for example, on Mondays and Tuesdays when it starts at 2:38 and you're just wrapping up your class, then yeah, you have the opportunity to visit them physically. But if you're off campus, then you would join it digitally.
Will the students who have mixed face-to-face and online classes have access to teachers if they stay on campus?
Yes. They will have access to teachers in the class period in which they are assigned to them. So if you're an on-campus or online course, which means a hybrid student who has a mixture of both online and face-to-face classes, you're assigned a specific period. You can go see them at that time, but you shouldn't go to their classrooms during your flex period.
Okay. Do we need to fill any form out if my daughter is only going to one class Friday morning? All the rest of her classes are online.
If she's coming to, if she's coming to campus just Friday morning, for her to leave immediately after that class, we would need that off-campus privilege form.
Okay. Where will she pick her ID up if she is only coming to school on Friday for that one class at 8:30?
ID cards are going to be with advisory teachers. So for her, in this situation, the advisory teacher would have the ID card. We also have a handful of students that unfortunately haven't taken their ID card picture. We did have another ID picture drive today. There's going to be about 50, 60 of them. We're also going to be sending additional guidance out to them about where they will need to go take their picture and what that plan is going to look like too next week.
So I would, let me clarify. The question was, they only have a 7th period class. What do they do? The first day that you come back to campus, so if your only class is a 7th period class on Friday, you're the Tuesday, Friday, or Wednesday, Friday group, then you must come to advisory on Friday before your 7th period class to obtain your ID. So yes, you will need to at least come one time to check in with that advisory teacher. So it's advisory and then 7th, and then you can leave campus again.
Okay. What's the policy for students to return to campus per an appointment visit, daytime doctor appointment, dentist, etc.?
That's not anything. They have to check out through the office.
Mm-hmm.
Are we allowed to bring lunches from home?
I actually want to clarify this. You can bring your food, however, you cannot eat in the building. What we do want to shy away from, and this is something that was happening pre-pandemic, is parents do not bring food and try to come into the office area. We are limiting the number of visitors that are on campus. You will see a sandwich board that says, hey, we're only allowed 3 individuals in the office at one time. Parents, I know we love bringing food for our kids and making sure that, that they get that home cooking. However, if a student brings food, they are to not eat it inside the classroom. They can bring their own food. They can eat it in the quad area when it is lunchtime. So I just want to clarify that part of it.
Okay. Will OC students test on campus or at home?
So OC students, meaning they have an online class, they will test when it is alongside their OC teacher face-to-face. One of the reasons is we also want to make sure that we're upholding our academic honesty policy. Unfortunately, as we've had online testing during the course of the year, we've had instances where some students did not meet that policy, and we have to validate and the integrity of our Edgenuity program. OP students, so fully online pathway students that have no face-to-face classes, they will continue to utilize the testing center and utilize the online testing platform that we have.
Yeah, can I just like to really clarify this? If you are a fully online student, you are an online pathway student. That means you have 0 face-to-face classes. You are an OP student. You will do all of your testing just as you have all year in the online testing center. If you are a student who has an OC class, that means you have a mixture of both face-to-face classes, even if it's 1, and online classes. You are an OC student. Any student who has a mixture of face-to-face and online classes, your tests will no longer be taken in the testing center. They will be taken directly with your online course teacher. So again, OP, which is full online, is all electronic, all distance. Anybody who has a mixture, you're taking all of your tests with your classroom teacher now.
Okay. If my child is allowed off campus, can they do their advisory check-in at home, or do they need to come back to school to physically attend advisory?
Yes, they can do advisory while they are at home.
Okay. Is Building L Learning Commons?
Yes.
Yes.
How many kids are in a cohort?
It's roughly half the school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What reason to opening school when we know that school will close after 1.5 months as summer vacation?
It's a decision that was made by the board.
Okay. Will the students sit on desks that are 6 feet apart from each other? How many students will be in one class?
Approximately half of the class will be sitting in the room at any one given time. The direction that we've been given from the California Department of Public Health is that we space students at least 3 feet apart as practicable.
Mm-hmm.
Is it mandatory to attend a test for an OC course? Could we still do it in the testing center?
Yes, you must go to test with your online course teacher if you are in the hybrid program, which means you have face-to-face and online classes. You will not be able to take those tests in the testing center anymore.
For the success period scheduled after in-person classes, does the student have to stay on campus until 3:30?
No, it depends. Students may go if they would like to, but they can attend virtually as well.
Is lunch free for all students every day? Your first meal is free. Your second one will cost you $3.25 if you choose to have a second one.
Is that on a daily basis?
For when you come to campus, yes.
So I think people might misunderstand. They think just the first time ever that they purchase, it's free. So what we're meaning is, yes, lunch is free every day, but you only get one every day.
Mm-hmm.
If the student has symptoms but does not test positive and will stay at home, how will they get the classroom instruction? Will the student have distance learning?
So the way that works is that the student calls in sick just like they normally would, and you would get makeup work from the teacher. Or if there is no there are no distance learning classes at that time, so it's all makeup work, just like you would do if you were sick on a regular basis.
Okay. Please comment on the timing of going to 5 days. I've heard talk of that.
On the timing of going to 5 days?
Yeah, I think they're asking like when will that happen?
So it's unsure that it will be all 5 days. We haven't figured out the schedule, but May 10th, we will no longer be doing hybrid. All students will be on campus. All face-to-face students will be on campus on whatever schedule we determine. And once we have that schedule determined, we will communicate that out and potentially have another parent meeting so that we can explain and answer any questions.
Okay. Are students allowed to bring their own lunch?
Yes.
Where do I find the form to let my student leave the campus when there is no class?
It's on our website. You'll notice the COVID guidance link that you see on the screen right now. You can find it there.
What happens if I do not fill out this form?
If you don't fill the form out, the student will not be allowed to leave campus.
If the first meal is free, why should I order it on my mealorder.com? Are vegetarian options available?
Vegetarian options are available. If you don't order it, we won't have enough food prepared. We have to know how many people are taking advantage of that program.
Okay. If the Learning Commons is at capacity, where would my child go if they're staying on campus during their flex period?
We have seats on the quad area. The temperature is getting warmer. We also have likely we'll have some spaces elsewhere on campus, and like in the multi-use room. Mm-hmm. Again, capacity has to be observed in those places, but we typically have multiple places on campus where students can go.
If a student is fully vaccinated and is exposed to COVID-19 on campus in a classroom, do they need to quarantine for 14 days?
We've answered this one previously. Once we get updated guidance, we will communicate what that is. Right now, if somebody has exposure, we will follow the exposure protocol.
Will the students know their lunch pickup location after ordering online? I believe there are a couple spots on campus.
Both spots, there's a C building and also the MPR. Students can go to either or. Again, we want to make sure we use the app so we can plan accordingly on how much lunch needs to be provided.
My daughter is in cohort B. She is taking only one class and it's in the morning on Friday. Does she need to come to school on Monday to receive an ID?
No, she'll come on that day, that first day that she's supposed to come.
Please provide the link for filling out the permission form to let my student leave campus.
It's on our website. You'll notice the link there to the COVID guidance website, and you can find it either in the slide deck that's at the bottom of that page, or I believe there's another link to it there.
If you have an OC period for 5th period, do the students have to come to class in the morning or only attend face-to-face classes?
Can you repeat that?
You would only need face-to-face classes.
Correct. Okay. This one has a couple questions. If a student stays home due to illness, what is the protocol for the school work missed for that day?
Teachers will be providing makeup work if a student is sick.
If a student is COVID sick during finals, is there a makeup option?
We will address that individually if that situation arises.
What are the safety protocols in case of an intruder alert?
Our campus locks down after 10 minutes into each period, so all gates and all entry and exit ways to campus are closed. We are a closed campus.
Will finals be taken on campus?
As of right now, yes.
What email do we submit the off-campus privilege form to?
You would send it to the MHHS attendance email.
Okay. Okay, as we all know, the learning conditions have not been conducive for 100% learning and understanding as opposed to an in-person teaching. Are there any measures put in place for leniency based on past track record of student?
Repeat that question one more time.
Okay, the learning conditions have not been conducive for 100% learning and understanding as opposed to an in-person teaching. Are there any measures put in place for leniency based on past track record of students?
At this point, the teachers have been working really hard this year. Actually, we understand that this is like the best of a bad situation. We're basing grades on students and the work that they're doing now. And we're not using past track records to determine current grades. No.
And then just want to reiterate, if you're a fully OP student, so fully online, you do not come to campus, your finals will continue to be online. Just for the hybrid, the face-to-face classes, hybrid kids, you would take those in person.
What if a child has allergies? Would that be considered a COVID symptom?
That would be allergies.
If a student has to be quarantined due to having COVID or COVID-like symptoms, can that student take an OC test at the testing center from home, or will they have to wait after they come back to school to take the test?
Yeah, so first of all, you're not quarantined for COVID-like symptoms. We just want you to stay home for COVID-like symptoms. You'd only be officially quarantined if you have COVID. Second of all, yes, if a student is quarantined because they have COVID, they will be able to take tests online.
Are the online class finals going to be in person?
The online pathway finals will be online. None of our online pathway students need to come on campus. In fact, we can't have them on campus this year because we don't count them as part of our cohorts.
Will you be providing gloves for disinfecting student spaces?
We will provide gloves if students are using equipment that is shared amongst different periods. However, all students have sanitation wipes that they'll be using to disinfect their areas.
Right, so the sanitation wipes that students are using to disinfect after their class is to disinfect their own area, not other people's areas. So no, we will not be providing gloves for them to use the sanitation wipes. They're only sanitizing their own area.
Where can students get IDs when we return to campus, assuming we've lost or misplaced our current one?
If a student loses their current ID, they'll be able to get a replacement from the office. We'll communicate that out. Our first thing is to making sure that students get their IDs.
Since success will be done virtually, does that mean students will head home after their last period of the day?
They can.
Yes.
I am cohort B, so I have second period face-to-face. So after second period, can I go home for lunch and then come back for advisory?
Yeah, if you have the form filled out, then yes, you can leave and come back.
From May 10th, is it all day full school for hybrid students in person?
Again, we'll share that schedule as soon as we have it. We don't have it yet.
Okay. What is the policy for students needing to leave campus for an appointment?
Same as it was before. They come to the office. Parents can call in and indicate that the student has an appointment, and the student just comes in, gets the off-campus pass, and it's the same procedure as before.
What if you have to leave campus before ID cards are handed out?
You shouldn't. You have to be in class. We're requiring you to attend your first advisory class, unless you're being called out for an appointment or something like that, and then you can pick it up from your advisory teacher at another time, or ask your vice principal or your counselor to help you figure out how you can get it.
My student has second period in person, third period OC, and fourth period in person. Will she be allowed to stay on campus during third period?
Yes.
What time does school start and end?
The bell schedule is posted online under bell schedules, and you'll be able to view it there. And it's also on this slide deck earlier in this presentation. So if you go to tinyurl.com/MHHS-COVID-guidance, you'll be able to see it in the slide deck there as well.
Go ahead.
First period starts at 8:30.
The question keeps coming up about bringing their own food. So I think we need to do a one-liner.
So the one-liner is, yes, your student can bring their own food. I think it was misstated earlier, but yes, the students can bring their own food. They're not forced to eat school food, even though our school food is really good, actually.
It is really good food. Really good food.
If we have an online class and we are staying at school, can we go anywhere on campus, or is there a specific classroom we have to go to?
If you have an online class, you can go to the online teacher if it's that specific period.
I believe, okay. I only have one class hybrid in person. Will I take my test for all my OC classes from home, or will I have to come onto campus for each test?
If you're an OC student, you would take your OC test with your teacher.
On campus.
On campus.
Many people are asking where to get the off-campus privilege forms.
We just realized that we thought we linked it there and it wasn't there. So that's what I've been doing just now. It is now live. It's a couple of links down. It's called off-campus permission form. So you should be able to access it now. We're very sorry about that. It is also in the slide deck. You can find it in the slide deck, but now there's a direct link to it in that list of links that will help you.
If a child has advisory right after lunch, do they hang out wherever they are and log into their digital advisory class?
They can, or they can go straight to their advisory class.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, no, they won't be able to hang out on campus. If they're on campus, they will be required to be in their advisory class.
Is there a designated area for the students to sit and take OC classes between face-to-face classes?
The Learning Commons out on the quad, there's tables all over. We've moved all of our tables all over campus, so there's multiple places there. The multi-use room will be a place where students can go as well, so they can grab a seat wherever they can find one.
Since they cannot use lockers when students have PE, do they get a chance to keep their items inside the gym?
The PE teachers will designate where they're going to be keeping their items or backpacks.
Are there lockers?
Lockers are not being used for students right now.
If a student has symptoms but tested negative and they have to stay home, how will they get instruction? Will they have distance learning?
This is the same as if a kid were sick for any other reason. You're sick, you tell the teacher, you get makeup work.
Will there be...
I'd like to clarify too. It might have been a question from a freshman parent or a freshman student that asked about lockers. We actually don't have lockers on our campus. One of the reasons is we don't have textbooks. Pretty much kids come with their Chromebook and a notebook, and that's really all they need. Sometimes they might have a project that they bring to school with them, but we don't have lockers on campus for students. The only lockers we have are for PE, and we're not using the locker room.
Will there be clear desk shields in the classrooms?
No, there will not be. It is not a recommendation from the CDPH at this time.
Can the leave form be signed at a later date once we see how our students are transitioning, or does it have to be done now?
It can be done whenever you're ready to fill it out. If you want them to stay on campus for now and then see if it works, and if it doesn't, then you can fill it out later.
If a student is on free and reduced meals, is the first free by the district and the second free and reduced?
It's all free all year.
Do we need to fill out an off-campus privilege form to leave during success?
No.
Will hybrid students have to stay on campus during success if they choose distance learning or success that doesn't require help from teachers? If so, will their parent have to sign a permission slip?
It's kind of the same question. No, there may be instances, especially for students who are not doing well and receiving, poor grades and really need to be in the classroom, that the teacher might contact the parent and say, I'm requiring your student to physically be in my classroom for success. And that will be an expectation if that communication is made.
Do you only get school lunch on the days you come to school, or what happens on asynchronous days?
The district is still doing their lunch pickup. Primarily, that's on Wednesdays for high school students. So you still are able to pick up lunch for the week, and that's still being provided.
If lunch is free, is ordering on My Meal order for requesting second lunch? Please clarify.
On My Meal order, the way that it's set up right now is you're able to pick up the lunch that you want, and then if you do need a second one, you would just go back into the line, I believe. Again, that's a question also for Ms. Bernie Hill, but the first lunch will be free that you grab that day.
I just flashed up Director of Food Services name and email address. If you have questions specifically, we know a little bit about the food services thing, like that there's a free meal, that they'll be able to pick it up, that they'll be able to order it. But if you have specific questions about, ordering a second meal for the day or whatever that is, you can contact her directly, and that's flashed up on the screen right now.
On the days where hybrid students don't attend school, will work be asynchronous, or will there be Zoom classes to log into?
No Zoom classes. All work will be asynchronous on the days that they are not here.
Is there a link to ordering lunch?
It's
embedded in. Yeah.
So we just have to sign and send the off-campus privilege form once, and it will be valid for the rest of the year, correct?
Correct.
If a student has one face-to-face class and the rest are OC, are they required to attend in-person advisory on their cohort day?
Repeat the question again.
Yeah, repeat that.
If a student has one face-to-face class and the rest are OC, are they required to attend in-person advisory on their cohort day?
The first cohort day that they're on campus is because they want to go get their ID card, but then after that, they would if after their class.
No. The answer is no. If they have, they only have to be on campus for their face-to-face class, but for their OC class, they can leave campus. Mm-hmm. If the student has period 3 online class, can the student leave school after period 2 and return to school for 4th period?
Yes.
Can a student leave campus after school is over?
Yes, we're actually going to be making sure that we clear campus once school is over, because we need to make sure that we start our sanitation processes as well.
Can freshmen leave for lunch and come back for their next period if they have the form approved?
No, only juniors and seniors.
If my student forgets something at home, are parents allowed to bring it to school?
What was that?
Yes.
If my student forgets something at home, are parents allowed to bring items to school?
Yes, but again, you might be in a line waiting to get in because we can only have 3 people in at a time.
And ideally, it's just a Chromebook is the most necessary item that a student needs to bring with them to campus.
Will we be taking our OC test during our assigned OC period?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there general lockers in high school, or do we carry our backpacks around all day?
That was answered. You carry your backpack.
Okay. Okay. Let's say I have an OC test after my day with my OC teacher. Do I have to wait a full week until my period with them comes again?
That's a good question. So for those instances, you need to communicate really closely with your teacher Your teacher will be able to temporarily open the class for you to move forward past that test until you see them the next time. So just communicate with your teacher if you feel like you're stuck at a test and it's not letting you move forward with the rest of the curriculum, and then the next time you're on campus, you can test with them.
Can students carry scooters with them on campus?
We actually have scooter lockers. They're over behind the multi-use room inside the bike lock area. We installed them last year. We suggest that you need a lock, but there is an actual scooter and skateboard locker area.
Why do we need to fill out the off-campus permission form?
We need
to
be
be able to trace who's coming to campus and who's exiting campus.
Will students need to purchase a new parking permit?
We're not doing parking permits this year.
Are students allowed to use notes for their OC tests?
That's a great question for your teacher, but yes.
Yes.
Will the testing center still be used for OC classes?
It will be used for OP, fully online students.
Okay, the last question is the off-campus permission form only for juniors and seniors?
It's for students who would like to leave campus after they're done with their face-to-face classes for the day.
Okay, that is our final question.
Okay. Well, we'd like to thank all of you for being here tonight. We will continue to take a look at any questions that might come in. We're going to update our frequently asked questions document that's up on the website. So please visit our COVID website, tinyurl.com/MHHS-COVID-guidance for all of the links and the frequently asked questions, and we'll continue going through that. So from all of us here at Mountain House High School, I'm Mr. Faubert, that's Mr. Panu, Mrs. Duran, and Mrs. Hellstrom, and thank you so much for being with us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you or your students here next week. Bye-bye.